This short video will show you how to find some example SST forms for completing your SSTs. When you go into the SST system, if you click onto Library and Document Library, some resources will load. Scroll down to the section that says Student Study Examples. These examples are listed according to levels, and we no longer refer to SST meetings as levels. We now refer to them as meeting numbers. However, the information in these forms is still very good examples of what you would do at various levels in the SST or various meetings. So if you click on level 1, you'll notice that there is an example of a meeting 1 form. This form is completed with the SST intervention plan. Your meeting 1 will always begin with the SST intervention plan. And in fact, that is the only meeting that will be done on this plan. It is the initial meeting, the initial plan for the student. So you'll notice that you scroll down. It gives you a good example of some goals that you might enter and how you would enter the information for those goals. The various fields that are listed there. And then it shows an example of how you would complete the team notes form for that meeting. You notice there's a summary of the meeting. I would encourage you, rather than level 1, that you would write meeting 1 and the date. And you have a summary, action to be taken, and additional information. When you go back into the system, what we see here as level 2 would really be meeting 2, completed on the intervention plan review form. As I said, every meeting after meeting 1 will use the intervention plan review form. This you would write meeting 2, you would write the date, and you would complete the fields. Again, it gives you a good example of how to complete this form with the interventions and the goals. And it also gives you the progress monitoring form and what will that will look like. I've discussed progress monitoring form and how it gets updated and completed in another video that I will attach to this as well. We go back. We see that level 2 follow-up would be our meeting 3. Again, we're using the intervention plan review form. So before completing this form, the teacher would have asked the SST chair to affirm and save meeting 2. And that would be saved in history. The SST chair would indicate to the teacher that the meeting has been saved, affirmed, it is now in history, and then the teacher would clear that form using the red clear button and would go ahead and begin filling it out for meeting 3. We don't use the same form for more than one meeting. We always clear the form once it's affirmed. It's like a template for meetings 2 and beyond. So again, we see that the same form is in here, the same types of information indicated. And you can see an example of how the goals were tweaked or modified to meet the students' needs or added to. I think this one added some kind of a behavior goal. And then you can see examples of how the progress monitoring data was collected and how that looks. This data was entered manually, so you can see that every few weeks the teacher entered data related to the goals. If we go back, we see what's listed here as level 3 would be our meeting 4. And it is the same form because this is a template. So meeting 3 would have been completed. The teacher would have asked the SST chair to affirm it, save it in history. When the SST chair indicates that, the teacher would look into the student history, make sure that the form is there, and then they could clear that form and prepare it for meeting 4. So no longer do we look at our SST meetings as level 1, 2, 3 testing. We're now looking at just whatever the student needs at each different juncture. So there's times when a meeting 1 could turn into a request for testing. If there was an extreme enough circumstance that warranted that, the teacher could ask the psychologist and the resource specialist, does this student, warrant a consideration of testing? If they agree to that, there could be a meeting like that with the first or second meeting for the student. So it really does depend on what the student needs and how extreme the issues are at that time. I wanted to also show you an example of what the student history looks like when these meetings are affirmed. So I'm going to go in with a sample student. Okay, So we're going to go ahead and look at the intervention plan review for this student. And as I said earlier, this is the form that's used for meeting 2 and beyond. So you see I've entered meeting number 2, the date, and completed some information. Now, if the time went by and I was ready to have another meeting, I would tell the SST chair, I need this meeting to be affirmed and saved. Okay. Once the SST chair tells you that that's happened, always look into student history and double check just to make sure that form is saved there. So you scroll down to SST form history and you see some icons here. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and check this just to make sure that our information is saved. Once you open up that icon, you're going to see that the bolded lists are the ones that were saved and affirmed. And the way that you can check those is by clicking on the printer next to it. You can't change these forms or add to them once they're affirmed in history, but you can print them and view them. The form takes a few seconds to populate, to load. And then we can see that that meeting 2 on 11/30 was held. The information is there. It is saved in history, double checking. So now the teacher knows that it would be safe to go back to the form. This is the live form now. And I could go ahead if I was the teacher. Now that I know that meeting is saved, I would click this clear form button. All the fields would be cleared and I would go ahead and enter the information for meeting 3. Since this form has been saved, I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. It says, are you sure? So yes. Now you notice we have a blank form. I'll enter meeting 4 and I would enter the date. And I would continue with the form as a new form. As I said, this is a template. Okay. As far as the progress monitoring form, we look into that. Oh, I got a warning that I need to save the form. So if you do clear a form accidentally, when it asks you if you want to save the form, you can just say no. So now I've gone into the progress monitoring field. You're going to notice that all of the interventions that you enter on the intervention plan or the intervention plan review have populated into these fields. This is what shows you the important things to enter into your forms. So if I want to add to the progress monitoring, let's say for this MobiMax intervention for sight words, I will click on it. Pops up like this, and you can see the records that have been added. So if I want to add another record, I put the date, I put a comment about what's been going on, what was collected, and I would click Add Record, and that will bring up another record that I can add information to. I always click Save Form when I'm done. So if you're ever wondering, what are the most important fields to complete when I'm completing an intervention plan or an intervention plan review? The answer to that is you want the start date of the intervention, the projected end date, the intervention itself, baseline date and baseline score, and then the goal date, the goal score, who's monitoring it, and what the monitoring tools are. I hope this helps you today. Please let me know if you have any further questions. Thank you.